All right, so we are going to get into data cleaning. Data cleaning is a huge part of your job when you're working with data. It's generally not the most interesting part of your job, right? We're not making charts and pretty graphs, but it absolutely has to be done, and it can be kind of, I think it can be fun. So the idea is that we get a data set. The data set very likely might have errors in it. It might have errors in it for a variety of reasons, right? So sometimes we get data that was typed in by someone, and when we type things, we make typos. Okay. This is especially important for variables that we're going to want to like search or match. Okay, so if you have categorical variables, this is especially important because let's say I have a column that has male and female. I want to be really sure that I don't have any typos in there because later I might want to like compare males to females and I don't want to leave anybody out. So that's the main reason that we'll get dirty or messy data that needs to be cleaned. There can be other reasons, but that's primarily we're getting rid of mistakes so that our data is more accurate. And we're going to be doing this in OpenRefine. Some of the techniques I'm going to show you can also do in Excel, but I like to clean and refine, and so that's what we're going to do. All right, so we have a data set that looks at federal judges, okay? And if I'm opening this data set for the first time, I think I'm going to work on it. I just want to think about whether or not it's in good shape, whether or not I can work with it. So we're going to be looking for primarily categorical columns. So things like last name, I don't really have a way of knowing whether there's a typo there or not. At least not in any kind of automated way. So I'm going to skip those. But something like birth state, I know that there's only like 51 states, okay? So let's make sure that we don't have any typos here. And the way we're going to do this is by making a text facet. So that's going to come over here and give me all of the different values that are in that column. So if I sort by count, we'll see that the really common ones are at the top. And now we think, okay, if there are any typos, they're probably like rare, right? There's probably only one or two typos. So I'm going to come down to the bottom and let's see. So surprisingly, we've got a lot of like non-US things. Okay, one from Alaska. And I'm just going to kind of look up here and see whether I'm seeing any typos, anything that's obviously wrong. And by the time I get to 20, I can assume that nobody's making a typo that many times. So birth state looks clean to me, but let's take a look at gender. So gender, facet, text facet. Okay, so I don't have to scroll around, but this really quickly shows me, okay, I've got a typo on female. All I have to do is edit, correct that without typos myself, and apply it. Okay, and if you had multiple typos there, it would correct all of them at once. So we can go through and check all of our categorical columns this way. We'll facet, text facet on race, sort by count, and see if there's any typos down here. Let's see, African American, Hispanic. Okay, so here's one where if I'm looking at the less common ones, I see that this underscore probably doesn't need to be here. So I'm gonna take that out really quick, apply it, and now I'll see that my count jumps up to 2 here. That's better. Otherwise, this looks pretty good to me, so we'll call that done. We could check all of these if we wanted to. I don't think that there's any that we're going to catch in there. So we'll go ahead and skip it. The other thing that we might want to catch, though, are numerical columns. So these are harder because we don't treat them as categorical variables, right? I don't want to do the same thing with these years because I just can't tell. And generally with numeric columns, it's not obvious whether there's been a typo or not. And the only thing that we can really do is look at like values that we don't think make sense, okay? And this one's obvious because it's the first one, right? This number is way higher than these numbers. So I know that it might be a bad, or it is a bad value. Of course, it could be buried 3,000 down. So we can do something similar, and we could create what's called a numeric facet here. One thing to keep in mind though, if I go to numeric facet, it's basically not going to work. It says no numeric value present. So OpenRefine keeps track of what data type is in each of these columns, and for some reason it thinks this is text, and this is really easy to fix. So we'll go to Edit Cells, Common Transformations, and we'll say convert this to a number. Okay, so now this is a numeric field. I can facet numeric facet, and all this gives me is a slider, okay? And it's kind of rough, so it's showing me there's a lot right here around 1,000, or we know, closer to 2,000, and then I can see there's a little bit up here near 20,000. So that seems like a bad value to me, and if I move my sliders, it will bring up those rows. And I don't know how to correct this. I would probably need to go onto the internet and look up the birth year of this person. But this is at least a way to begin to identify bad values in our numeric columns. Okay, so in our next video, we'll take a look at one more advanced way of cleaning data.